The Afterword Summer Scrabble Tournament took place in Waterford City on the Saturday, the 27th of May 2023. It was hosted by the home of the Afterword Scrabble Club and the friendliest venue in the city, and that is the Cove Bar on the Dunmore Road. There were 16 players who took part on that day. The tournament was in open format with a free challenge rule. There were 7 games. Here's how it went. So here is the results sheet for round 1. You can see the person who started play on the left-hand side, the person who replied on the right, and the victor is shown in green. And you can see the scores as well. What's unusual about this is that mostly people who replied won their games. Statistically, it's more likely that if you start, you're going to win your game. So you can see a huge win for Tom there in game 1, and the very tight high-scoring battle between Feargal and Mary in game 8. Then if you look at the results sheet for round 2, same situation. The person who started plays on the left, the person who replied is on the right. The winners are shown in green font. You can see a monster score there from Feargal of 529 in his game against Marie. Moving on to the score sheet for the games in round 3. Another huge win for Feargal here with a score of 512 points. Then the result sheet for round 4 of play. You can see here the tightest result of the day where Mary beat Dominic by just 7 points on table 4. Very exciting stuff. The result sheet for round 5 of play. You can see a big game there between Feargal and myself, game 1 there. In game 8, you can see Mark playing Liam. That was Mark's first win in competitive play. Here's the result sheet for round 6 of play, the penultimate round. You might notice the cracker of a battle between Teresa and Eileen on table 2, where the margin of victory was just 10 points. And then the final round of games, you have on table 1, Feargal with a huge win over Tom. Another huge game down on table 6 with Hugh getting a 200-point victory over Liam. And 356, I believe, was Mary's highest score of the tournament. This now shows the final standings for the event. So after 7 games, you can see the podium finishers in 3rd place. It was myself, Owen Jackson, on 5 wins with a spread of 286. 2nd place was Teresa Scallon on 6 wins and a spread of 332, and the winner of the tournament with 6 wins and an excellent spread of 836, it was Feargal Weatherhead. Now let's look at the stats in more detail, because everyone loves a good stats report. I know I do anyway. First one up is the total score stat. Feargal was out in front, unsurprisingly, with 3,343 points in total. Then myself on 3,006 points, Chris 2,792, Eileen 2,786, and rounding up the top 5 as regards total scores is Mary's 2,771, which is quite amazing considering that she ended up in 11th place in the standings, but her scoring was solid. And there's the rest of it then. Mark and Roisin were new to tournament play. Okay, now this next one shows pretty much the same information really, except it's more reliable, and this one, even if people have had buys, this stat is solid and can be arranged as a leaderboard. Yeah, there's no complaints here. So this pretty much shows the same thing, but instead of showing total score, it shows average score. So that's total score divided by number of games. And so it's the same order as the previous board, but it's showing that Feargal was averaging close to 500 points per game, which is amazing. I was near 430, then Chris on 398. There we go. That shows the rest of them then. Kind of points they were averaging per game. Okay, our next stat, and do you know what? I'm a bit confused about this one as to what exactly it represents, but it's average opponent scores. So on average, what your opponent scored against you in your games. So the highest average opponent score came to Eileen Megan. Her average opponent score was nearly 400 points, so she had quite a tough. Does that mean? So that could mean one of two things, or possibly a combination of both of these things. Firstly, that she had some pretty tough opponents. Secondly, that she wasn't playing in a very defensive manner, where there were some premium squares left available for opponents. So possibly a mixture of those two things. I'm not sure exactly what this stat means, but on that, second was Mary Doyle and third was myself, Owen Jackson. The ones who had the lowest average opponent scores would have been Liam, Roisin and Dominic. Right, our next one is the highest combined scores of the tournament. Now, myself and Feargal had an amazing game. I managed to put down a 9 timer, and even with that, he still nearly bet me. Such is the Scrabble prowess of this man. But yeah, he was on nearly 500 points. Luckily, my 9 timer put me over the 500 mark, and I squeaked a win there. So a combined score of 1,017 points. Next highest, 869, myself and Eileen. Then rounding out the podium, another one of my wins. I'm doing well on this particular chart. Myself and Chris. And then Feargal and Tom on the same score. Listed later because it was a later round. Simple as. Okay. And there's the rest of the highest combined scores. So we have the best 14 of those. Next on the list, high wins. So, in first place here was Feargal's 535 point win versus Tom in the final round of play. Then we have Mary's 531 point win over Kane and Feargal's 529 point win over Murray. And there we go. So that's that one. They're the high wins. You can see them in red font there. And there we are. That's all the wins that were over 430 points. High losses. So the highest loss was that one from Feargal, where he lost on a score of almost 500 points. And then a big jump down to a score of 405 points when Mary lost to Feargal. And then everything after that in the high losses is under 400 points. So there's the list there anyway. Okay. Now, let's look at low spreads. This is basically all about games that were really close. So the closest game of the weekend was when Mary squeaked past Dominic by the tiniest of margins, spread of 7 points. Then you had Teresa's game against Eileen, 10. Feargal, Mark and Hugh all managed 11-point wins over their opponents. And once again, the order of these is based on simply the round number is all. They're all basically equal third on that list. And there you go. There's the rest of that. Those small spreads, those narrow wins, tight games. Now we have the low wins. So these are the lowest winning scores of the weekend, and they're shown in red font. So Mark, that was Mark's only win actually of the tournament and his first win in competitive play, and it was 170 points playing Liam's 159. The second lowest win was Liam's 239 and then Roisin's 240, and there's the rest of them then. Okay, there we go. Now low losses. So these were the lowest losing scores. They're shown again in red font. So the lowest one was Mark's losing score of 90 against Hugh's 371. And there we go. That's that one. This next set of statistics shows the high spread, but it also shows a number of other things as well. It shows pretty much every single one of the 56 games that were played that day, ordered from the biggest difference in spreads to the smallest difference in spreads. And it also shows in brackets who started each game. So there we go. Pauline's round 5 win over Kane of 2-8-7 being the biggest spread we got that day. Followed closely by Hugh's huge win over Mark and Feargal's win over Marie. And there we go. So there were 11 games where the spread was 200 points or more. Then the next bunch of games, these are the ones that fell between 100 and 199. Quite a few of these. Then this next batch are the ones that were between 50 and 100 basically. There you go. And then you have the really tight ones. This is anything where the spread was below 50. So nothing in these games at all. And there you have it, lucky number 7, the smallest spread we got that day. Next is the ratings upset of the day, and as usual with this bit, the unrated players don't count for this stat. They're not allowed to be in it. It's only players who have full ratings already that are in this particular bit. So the biggest ratings overhaul was when I bet Feargal, and that was a 64 points rating difference. Then next one was Tom and Pauline, where it was a 50-point difference. Then myself and Pauline, a 33-point difference, and so on. Okay, so they're all the ratings upsets of the day, and there were these ones as well that are definitely worth mentioning, even though the players aren't as yet rated. Mark's win over Liam was a 50-point rating difference, and Mary's win over Dominic was a 10-point ratings difference. And there we go. This overachievers table here shows players who punched above their weight as regards seeding. So you see Owen Jackson, myself there, I was seed number 8, but I finished 3rd. So that was a difference of 5 between my expected finishing place and my actual finishing place. Then second, closely followed actually, was Hugh, who was number 9 seed but finished 5th. And then Mary and Tom, who both managed to exceed their expected placing by 3. This next table is the Lucky Stiffs table. So this shows players who got a bit of luck as regards their margin of victory. So Teresa's closest games were a winning spread of 10, 25, 49, 81 in her 4 closest games. So as regards Lucky Stiffs, Teresa did well with the rub of the green. Then you have Mary, then Eileen, then me. Okay, next one is the Tough Luck table. This one is like the opposite of the Lucky Stiff table. This is where the rub of the green went against them. So we're taking their 3 closest losses, and Roisin tops that table as her closest losses were a loss of 28 points, 52 points, 67 points. So very, very close games that she could have won. So quite unlucky. Next was Dominic, then Chris, then Pauline. The rockiest road relates to a player who faced some very, very tough opponents during the tournament. So the eventual finishing places of the players that Eileen faced were the winner, the 2nd place player, the 3rd place player, the 4th place player, number 6, 7 and 11. So she had a really tough draw there. Then next on that list was Mary, then Marie, then Pauline. So as regards the prize giving ceremony, the C ratings prize went to Mary MacDonald, and Dominic McGuigan and Liam Thomas Davis were also in the frame for that prize. The B ratings prize went to Hugh Boland, closely followed by Marie Ryan and Tom Drone. The winner of the high word was Pauline Weatherhead. David versus Goliath prize went to Tom Drone for his win over Pauline. The best placed newbie went to Roisin Morrissey for her excellent performance. Very unlucky not to win more of her games, in fact. And then the top three. So in third place was myself, Owen Jackson. In second place, it was Teresa Scallon. And the winner of the tournament, as is so often the case with Irish tournaments, it was none other than the bowled Feargal Weatherhead. Pride of New Ross. So that's it. The next tournament on the horizon is the one in the Woodlands Hotel in Waterford in September. And that will be the All-Ireland Championships. So looking forward to that. Bring it on.